Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is starting to reject from key short-term resistance just after we took out this exact area of liquidity in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, which is one of the reasons as to why I've just taken some profits on my Bitcoin long position, which I'll explain in just a moment, alongside the fact that in less than 24 hours from now, we have new CPI inflation numbers that will be released, which could heavily affect the market in the short term. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment, alongside the price of Ethereum now starting to run into critical short-term resistance, while the price of Chainlink is doing the same, running into key short-term resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before we take a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, we need to talk about the upcoming CPI inflation numbers that will be released over the next one day. So in fact, these numbers will be released at exactly 12:30 p.m. in the GMT time zone on the 11th of June. So once again, over the next one day, you could use that to work out with your own time zone, 12:30 p.m. GMT. And the current CPI inflation rate in the United States is sitting at 2.3%, but the expectations for the new numbers is 2.5%. which is obviously an increase in inflation, but this is the expectations, which means this number has essentially already been priced into the market. And so in other words, if the outcome tomorrow, if the new number tomorrow comes in at 2.5% year over year CPI inflation, then we shouldn't really see any major move in the market because everyone is already expecting that and pricing it in. But if we see anything other than 2.5%, that's potentially where we could see some more volatility in the market. And basically, the further away from 2.5% we get, the more volatility we'll likely see in the price of Bitcoin, crypto, and also the stock market. And basically, all you need to know is if the number comes in below expectations, so if we see something less than 2.5% for the CPI inflation rate, then that would be considered bullish for markets. And if we see something above expectations, so higher than 2.5%, that would be considered bearish. And once again, the closer the number is to expectations, the closer it is to 2.5%, the more neutral that will be. So for example, if we get something like 2.4% or 2.6%, that'll still be relatively neutral for markets. We shouldn't really see a massive move based on those numbers. But if, for example, we see a number below 2% or at around 2%, we'd likely see a major bullish move, and vice versa. If we see something like 3% or above 3%, would likely see a significant dump in the short term. And the reason behind that, in case you're new to all of this, is all to do with interest rates and the Federal Reserve. Of course, the Federal Reserve is one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world. They have the money printer to print the United States dollar, and of course they can adjust interest rates. And so we always need to keep an eye on what the Federal Reserve is doing if we're investing or trading in financial assets, because they essentially determine the value of the US dollar, the world reserve currency. And so if we're looking at the probabilities for the upcoming Fed meetings, the FOMC meetings, the next meeting is on the 18th of June, as we could see, and currently there's an almost certain chance, a very high likelihood, that we'll see no change in interest rates at the next Fed meeting. And then the meeting after that on the 30th of July would also likely see no change in interest rates, but then potentially in September we may end up seeing another rate cut, a 25 basis point rate cut. Or if it doesn't happen in September, it's very likely going to happen in October, seeing a rate cut. And basically, when interest rates are cut, that is considered bullish for markets because people can borrow more money on lower interest rates, and that can flood the markets with liquidity. And so lower interest rates are bullish, higher interest rates are bearish, which is why the Federal Reserve increases interest rates when there's high inflation to try and bring down prices, or at least slow inflation. And so of course these inflation numbers can affect what the market is expecting for the upcoming FOMC meeting, the Fed meetings, because obviously the Federal Reserve looks at these inflation numbers to determine whether or not we should see rate cuts or rate hikes. And so that change in these probabilities here, the change in expectations for future rate cuts, is what affects the market, as the market is trying to price in for more or less rate cuts or rate hikes in the future. But once again, simply all you need to know if you just want to know the basics is if we get around 2.5% over the next one day for the CPI inflation number, that's relatively neutral. If it's well below 2.5%, that's bullish. If it's well above 2.5%, that is bearish. And as always, I will be sharing this number as soon as it gets released, within a matter of seconds from it being released, over on my Twitter or X in real time. So if you want to get extra real-time updates throughout the day like this, for example, then make sure to follow me over on my Twitter or X, link below this video video in the description and in the pinned comment. And with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin price charts today, here on the weekly time frame, the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bullish trend or a bull market. And if we're taking a look at this weekly time frame, at least for now, we're seeing somewhat stagnant bullish momentum in the weekly Bitcoin MACD. So not a lot has changed over the last one day in this indicator. And if we're looking at this weekly Bitcoin price chart, technically we're still forming higher highs in the price and lower highs in the weekly Bitcoin RSI, which is still technically a bearish divergence. And so obviously this is still a warning signal to pay attention to on the larger time frames here, telling us that potentially the larger bull market is starting to lose momentum on the larger time frames. Obviously we can see short-term pumps on smaller time frames. You have to understand the difference between the different time frames, but the bigger picture here, the larger time frames are potentially starting to slow down. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day time frame, we've not really seen any new changes over the last one day in these indicators on this time frame. So getting straight into the daily Bitcoin price chart, and of course over the last one day we've simply continued the short-term bullish relief, continued the major bounce from this very important area of support, still sitting in between around 101,000 to 102,000. And so when it comes to support and resistance on the daily time frame, obviously continue to expect a lot of support in that area, and we also should expect some support at around 106 to 107,000 if we were to see a little bit more of a pullback. But as for resistance, we do have some resistance at close to 110,000 and also at 112,000 at the all-time high. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, obviously over the last couple of days we saw that perfect breakout above this short-term level of resistance at close to 106 to 107,000. And then once we confirmed that breakout, as I said in my last video, that started a short-term short squeeze heading up towards these higher levels of liquidity, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But it's clear that we have just run into this point of resistance right here, which I also warned about in my last video. I said expect resistance at roughly around 110,000, and that's exactly where we started to find resistance as predicted. And so this was one of the reasons as to why I actually took a bit of profits out of my Bitcoin long position, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But once again, that was just one of the reasons as to why I've done that. And as for support, we are finding some short-term support right here based on previous resistance, flipping into new support at around 108.8k. So really just below 109,000 in the high 108k area. We do have some short-term support around there, but if we continue a bit more of a pullback here, the next significant level of support is this level right here, sitting at around 106.8k to 106.9k. So once again, just below 107,000 as potentially a major point of support based on previous support and resistance. If we were to see a pullback, obviously I'm not saying the price will definitely go there. I'm just saying if we see a further pullback, expect support at these levels. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, obviously over the last couple of days, we perfectly took out this liquidity that was sitting above the price of Bitcoin, exactly as I've been saying over the last few days. Obviously, when the price of Bitcoin was at around 105,000, I said it's extremely likely we're going to see a bullish move towards 107,000 to take out that liquidity. And then in my last video, once we just did that, when the price was at 107,000, I said it's extremely likely we're going to continue more of a bullish move towards 110,000 to take out that liquidity. And obviously now that that's played out exactly as I've been predicting over the last few days, we now no longer have really any major liquidity to pay attention to, at least for now, just in the short term. And so this is also one of the reasons as to why I've just taken some profits out of my long position, because we no longer have a clear direction, at least based on this chart right here. Obviously over the last few days, we did have a clear direction of bullish price action coming next, which is what I said over the last few days before the bullish price action. But like I just said, we no longer have that clear direction anymore. We've already used up that liquidity. We do have some small amount of liquidity building at close to all-time highs, but not really a significant clear level. And so overall, when it comes to my trading strategy for the price of Bitcoin, I'm still currently long on the price of Bitcoin. I did not close the entire long position. I just slightly reduced the size of the trade, taking a small amount of profits off the table out of the long position. And my stop loss has not changed over the last one day. So once again, the only change that I've made over the last one day is just slightly reducing the size of the trade. And as you can see here, my realized profits have obviously gone up over the last one day as I did realize more profits. And obviously I let you know that I was going to make this move before I made the move. Over the last couple of days, I said if the price of Bitcoin continues this short squeeze here in the short term up towards these points of resistance, potentially at around these points of resistance, I'll look at potentially taking a small amount of profits off the table out of this long position. And so as always, I put my money where my mouth is and follow it along with my own trading strategies, which I'm sharing here in these videos. And so just to quickly recap, really there was three reasons as to why I took a small small amount of profits out of this long position. One of the reasons was, of course, running into short-term resistance, seeing a bit of a rejection from resistance. Another reason was due to the fact that we no longer have at least a clear direction on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map because we've already used up this liquidity. And a third reason as to why I've taken a small amount of profits out of this long position is, of course, because we have the upcoming CPI inflation numbers still to be released. So I'm just slightly de-risking here in advance of the possibility that we could end up seeing a high inflation number, which would of course be bearish. But obviously I'm not saying we're definitely going to see a high inflation number. I'm just saying that's a possibility, a possible risk that we need to be aware of. So I'm just slightly de-risking, but still overall long on the price of Bitcoin because technically speaking, we're still within this bullish trend. As I've been saying this entire time, we've not confirmed any trend reversal. But as I've also been saying throughout the trend, from time to time, at some key points of resistance along the way towards the upside. And if we see some short-term warning signals and things like that, I'll just slightly reduce the size of the trade, taking a small amount of profits out of the long position. And so that is my exact trading strategy, showing very transparently exactly how I'm making money in this crypto market. And of course, if you want to get set up ready to go to take these trading opportunities to make a lot of easy profits in the market, like what I'm doing right now, obviously you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange to actually take these trades. And personally, I'm taking this trade right here over on 2bit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading bonuses, like for example, up to $50,000 that you can claim using the link below this video just by trading crypto. But if you're not one of these larger traders here, you can also get a $30 sign up bonus and a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your 2bit account, but only if you use that link. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNex as another exchange out there that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNex below this video. And if you use that link, you can claim some massive trading bonuses over here, like for example, up to 45,000 USDT, and also some Apple products you can claim using the link below this video, and also deposit bonuses. For example, if you deposit $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your BTNex account, but once again, only if you use that link. And so if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or if you're preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using the links below this video to those massive bonuses here over on these exchanges, which are only available using those links. And in case you're wondering, BTNex is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, and currently as I'm recording this video, the price of ETH is running into very important resistance. The golden pocket area of resistance still sitting in between around 2.7k to 2.8k. And so this is really a make or break moment for the price of ETH. Obviously, we've not yet actually confirmed a breakout above this resistance with candle closes above this resistance. But if that happens, if we see a daily candle close ideally above 2.8k and actually holding above that level, in that situation, we'll likely see a continued bullish move up towards around 3.2k to 3.3k as the next major area of resistance. And if we can break past around 3.2k to 3.3k, in that situation, it would likely head up towards around 3.6k as a technical price target based on this potentially being a bullish flag pattern. As we can see, that will set up a potential price target at close towards around 3.6k. But I want to make this clear, at least for now, that bullish price target is not currently in play. It's not yet active because we've not yet confirmed a breakout above 2.8k. So we still need to see this confirmed breakout in order to basically confirm this as a bullish flag pattern, which obviously would be very bullish for the price of ETH if we can confirm a breakout here. And so this is potentially a major trading opportunity that we can take. Obviously, if you missed the Bitcoin trade right here, making a bunch of easy profits in the market, this could potentially be our next opportunity to make a lot of profits in the crypto market. Once again, if we first confirm a breakout above this resistance, that could potentially be a signal to open some sort of long position here. As always, not financial advice, I'm just sharing possible trading opportunities, because if we confirm a breakout above this resistance, that will technically activate this bullish price target based on this being a bullish flag pattern. But of course, between the breakout and that price target, we also have this area of resistance to still focus on at around 3.2k to 3.3k. So that could potentially be a point to take some profits out of a possible long position here. And as always, if we break out and then break to the downside back below the point of the breakout, that would be an invalidation signal. So in that situation, that would invalidate the breakout and invalidate the trade. So of course, in that situation, I would have a stop loss just below the point of invalidation in the case of this long position. And if, for example, we break out and then continue heading further towards the upside into profits, personally, I like to move my stop loss at least towards my break even, ideally moving my stop loss further into profits as the trade moves further into profits. And so that's just an example of a potential trading strategy here based on this potential trading opportunity that we could take, once again, only if we first confirm this breakout above this key area of resistance. But other than that, honestly, not much else has changed for Ethereum over the last one day. So getting straight into the price of Solana on the daily time frame, and of course, over the last few days, Solana has also continued a short-term bullish relief, bouncing from key support, still sitting in between around 143 to 146, and we're now on our way towards this major point of resistance here based on previous support flipping into new resistance, and that's sitting at around 165 to 167 approximately. And so expect the price to struggle around there, but if we can actually break past that point on the price chart, in that situation, expect more resistance at roughly 180 to 184 approximately as the next points of resistance. And obviously in the immediate short term, looking at the 8-hour time frame, the price of Solana is continuing to play out this bullish divergence, exactly as I've been saying here on the channel over the last half a week now, since all the way back down here. I've been saying it's extremely likely we're going to see a bullish relief over the coming days as the most likely outcome from a bullish divergence. We usually see a bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of a sideways price range. And considering the fact that this is still playing out, we've not confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence, at least as of right now. Continue to expect this to play out at least over the next couple of days here as the most likely scenario. But remember, over the next one day, we have those CPI inflation numbers, which could potentially change what happens in the short term based on what the number actually is. But for now, based on this technical signal, we are still looking more bullish than bearish here in the short term. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the daily time frame, it's a similar situation for XRP. Obviously, the price is bouncing from this major level of support here, sitting at really just above $2, around $2.05 to $2.10. We have a lot of support around there, as we've previously seen many times in the price of XRP. And I'd also expect some support at roughly around $2.25 based on previous resistance here, flipping into new support. And as for resistance to watch out for, I would expect some resistance at roughly 234 to 235, more resistance at around 244 approximately, and major resistance at closer towards around 260. And we also have a possible double bottom pattern that's playing out right now, a W pattern, but I'll talk more about that in my last couple of videos here on the channel. So if you want to know more about that potential pattern and the price target based on this double bottom pattern, check out my last couple of videos here on the channel. But if we're taking a look at the shorter term on the 8-hour XRP price chart, right now the price of XRP is obviously still playing out this bullish divergence, like I said earlier, for Solana, actively playing out the bullish divergence on the 8-hour time frame. And technically speaking, because we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate this bullish divergence, at least for now, and especially while the RSI is trending in the bullish direction, showing a sign of strength, this bullish divergence is still playing out, which means continue to expect the same sort of price action that we've seen over the last couple of days to repeat again moving forward, at least over the next couple of days here is the most likely scenario. But remember, in a matter of hours from now, in less than 24 hours, we have those CPI inflation numbers being released. And so obviously, depending on what that number actually is, that could potentially change things in the short term. So just keep that in mind. So that is a possible risk over the next one day. But for now, based on this chart right here, this is telling us that all else being equal, we're likely going to see a continued bullish relief. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, it's a similar situation for Chainlink. Obviously, Chainlink is also experiencing a short-term bullish relief, bouncing from very important support, still sitting at around $12.80. So continue to expect a lot of support at $12.80, and I'd also expect some support at just above $14, around $14.10 to $14.20, based on this previous point of resistance flipping into new support if we were to see a bit of a pullback here. And obviously right now the price of Chainlink is running into very important resistance based on previous resistance in the price of Chainlink, and also previous support flipping into new resistance, and that's sitting in between $14.90 to $15.50. So expect the price to struggle in this area, and so far just over the last few hours we have started to struggle a little bit in this area, which is to be expected. But if the price of Chainlink actually confirms a breakout above this area of resistance, so if we see, for example, daily candle closes confirming above $15.50 and actually ideally holding that as new support, in that situation it's extremely likely we'll continue a bullish relief all the way up towards around $17.50 to $17.60 as the next significant point of resistance. But between that breakout and that significant point of resistance, we could potentially find some short-term resistance at close to $16. And but also at roughly 1680 as other short-term points of resistance. But basically, if we see that confirmed breakout above 1550, that would significantly increase the probability that the price of Chainlink will continue to go up towards around 1750 to 1760 as a very likely scenario if we first confirm a breakout above 1550. And once again, if you want to get set up ready to go to take these trading opportunities in the price of any crypto, get set up ready to go using the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto to make a lot of easy profits in the crypto market, like what I'm doing right here, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or shorts positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.